Welcome to Storylink Radio. Storylink Radio podcasts provide 24/7 storytelling from professional storytellers along with text for every story so listeners can read along with the storyteller, including tonight's presentation. This provides a fun experience, a deeper understanding of the story, and promotes literacy, especially for language learners. This is always provided free of charge. Please visit www.storylinkradio.com. Tonight's story is A Legend of Lough Mask, compiled by Samuel Lover in 1831. We are presenting live tonight from Storylink Radio's Celticworld in the virtual world of Kitely. There are numerous Celtic-themed areas and recreations here, including Newgrange, Stonehenge, Heroes Hall, and numerous more educational and adventure opportunities. You are welcome to visit and explore anytime and to join us for future story presentations. We'd love to have you. If you'd like to read along with your storyteller, the text for tonight's story can be found at www.storylinkradio.com and click on the Podcasts button. We're drawing tonight from ancient Irish legends. Those of you familiar with the John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara movie, The Quiet Man, may find it interesting that much of the film was shot at Ashford Castle and in and around the village of Cong in County Mayo. 3 miles from Cong is Lough Mask, or Lough Mask, the site of tonight's story. Lough Mask is the middle of 3 lakes in County Galway. In terms of volume, it is the largest lake in the Republic of Ireland. The lake is fed by an underground stream eventually flowing into the River Corrib, the fastest flowing river in Europe, which flows through Galway City and into the Atlantic Ocean. Now, according to local legend, a banshee haunts Bly Island, a small island in Lough Mask, and she bears messages from beyond. There have also been reported sightings of the banshee around the shore of the loch, as well as other forms of fairy activity. And so, here we go. A Legend of Lough Mask. The evening was closing fast as the young Cormac O'Flaherty had reached the highest acclivity of one of the rugged passes of the steep mountains of Joyce's country. He made a brief pause. Not to take breath, fair listener. Cormac needed no breathing time and would have considered it little short of an insult to have had such a motive attributed to the momentary stand he now made. And none that knew the action of the human figure would have thought it. For the firm footing which one beautifully formed leg held with youthful firmness on that mountain path, while the other, slightly thrown behind, rested on the half-bent foot, did not imply repose, but rather suspended action. In sooth, youth Cormac, to the eye of the painter, might have seemed a living Atenius. All the grace of that beautiful antique, all the youth, all the expression of suspended motion were there, with more of vigor and impatience. He paused, not to take breath, Sir Walter Scott, for like your own Malcolm Graham, right up Ben Noman could he press, and not a sob his toll confess. And our young O'Flaherty was not to be outdone in breasting up a mountain side by the boldest Graham of all. But he lingered for a moment to look back upon a scene at once sublime and gorgeous, and cold must the mortal have been who could have beheld and had not paused. On one side the Atlantic lay beneath him, brightly reflecting the glories of an autumnal setting sun, and expanding into a horizon of dazzling light. On the other lay the untrodden wilds before him, stretching amidst the depths of mountain valleys, whence the sunbeam had long since departed, and the mists were already wreathing round the overhanging heights, and veiling the distance in vapory indistinctness. Though you looked into some wizard's glass, and saw the uncertain conjuration of his wand. On the one side all was glory, light, and life. On the other all was awful, still, and almost dark. It was one of nature's sublimest moments, such as seldom witnessed, and never forgotten. Ere he descended the opposite declivity, Cormac once more bent back his gaze, and now it was not one of exclusively admiration. There was a mixture of scrutiny in his look now, and turning to Diarmid, a faithful adherent of his family and his only present companion, he said, "That sunset forebodes a coming storm, does it not, Diarmid?"
"Aye, truly it does,"
responded the attendant.
"and there's no truth in the clouds if we haven't it soon upon us."
"Then let us speed," said Cormac, "for the high hill and the narrow path must be traversed ere our journey be accomplished." And he sprang down the steep and shingly pass before him, followed by the faithful Diarmid. "'Tis sweet to know there is an eye to mark our coming and grow brighter when we come." And there was a bright eye watching for Cormac, and many a love-taught look did Eva cast over the waters of Lough Mask, impatient for the arrival of the young O'Flaherty.
"Surely he will be here this evening,"
thought Eva.
"Yet the sun is already low, and no distant oar disturbs the lovely quiet of this lake. But may he not have tarried beyond the mountains? He has friends therein,"
recollected Eva. But soon the maiden's jealous fancy whispered,
"But he has friends here, too."
and she reproached him for his delay, but it was only for a moment. The accusing spirit blushed as Eva continued her train of thought.
"Well, 'tis hard to part from pressing friends,"
thought she,
"and Cormac is ever welcome in the hall, and heavily closes the portal after his departing steps."
Another glance across the lake. 'Tis yet unrippled by an oar. The faint outline of the dark grey mountains, whose large masses lie unbroken by the detail which daylight discovers. The hazy distance of that lake, whose extremity is undistinguishable from the overhanging cliffs which embrace it. The fading of the western sky, the last lonely rook winging his weary way to the adjacent wood, the flickering flight of the bat across her windows. All this told Eva that the night was fast approaching. And yet Cormac was not come. She turned from the casement with a sigh. Oh, only those who love can tell how anxious are the moments we pass in watching the approach of the beloved one. Eva took her harp. Well, every heroine, to be sure, has a harp, don't they? But this was not the pedal harp, that instrument par excellence of heroines, but the simple harp of her country, whose single row of brazen wires had often rung to many a sprightly planxty, long before the double action of Erard had vibrated to some fantasia from Rossini or Meyerbeer, under the brilliant finger of a Boccia or Lebar. But now the harp of Eva did not ring forth the spirit-stirring planxty, but yielded to her gentlest touch one of the most soothing and plaintive of her native melodies, and to her woman's sensibility, which long expectation had excited, it seemed to breathe an unusual flow of tenderness and pathos which her heated imagination conjured almost into a prophetic wailing. Eva paused. She was alone, and the night had closed. Her chamber was dark and silent, and she burst into tears. And when her spirits became somewhat calmed by this gush of feeling, she arose, and dashing the lingering teardrops from the long lashes at the most beautiful blue eyes in all the world, Eva hastened to the hall and sought in the society of others to dissipate those feelings by which she had been overcome. The night now closed over the path of Cormac, and the storm he anticipated had swept across the waves of the Atlantic, and now burst in all its fury over the mountains of Joyce's country. The wind rushed along in wild gusts, bearing in its sweeping eddy heavy dashes of rain, which soon increased to a continuous deluge of enormous drops, rendering the mountain gullies the channel of temporary rivers, and the path that wound along the verge of each precipice so slippery as to render its passage death to the timid or unwary, and dangerous even to the firmest or most practised foot. Aye, but our hero and his attendant strode on. The torrent was resolutely past, its wild roar audible above the loud thunder peals that rolled through the startled echoes of the mountains. The dizzy path was firmly trod, its dangers rendered more perceptible by the blue lightnings, half revealing the depths of the abyss beneath, and Cormac and Diarmid still pressed on towards the shores of Lough Mask, unconscious of the interruption that yet awaited them, fiercer than the torrent and more deadly than that lightning. As these two passed round the base of a projecting crag, that flung its angular masses athwart the ravine through which they wound, a voice of brutal coarseness suddenly arrested their progress with the fiercely uttered word of "Stand!" Cormac instantly stopped. as instantly his weapon was in his hand, and with searching eye he sought to discover through the gloom what bold intruder dared cross the path of Lough O'Flaherty. His tongue now demanded what his eye failed him to make known, and the same rude voice that first addressed him answered, "Thy mortal foe! Thou seekest thy bride, fond boy, but never shalt thou behold her, never shalt thou share the bed of Eva." "Thou liest, foul traitor!" cried Cormac fiercely. "Avoid my path, avoid it, I say, for death is in it." "Aye, thou sayest truly," answered the unknown with a laugh of horrid meaning. "Come on, and thy words shall be made good." At this moment a flash of lightning illumined the whole glen with momentary splendor, and discovered to Cormac a few paces before him 2 armed men of gigantic stature, in one of whom he recognized Emin O'Flaherty, one of the many branches of that ancient and extensive family, equally distinguished for his personal prowess and savage temper. "Ah!" exclaimed Cormac. "Is it Emin Douve, then?" For the black hair of Emin had obtained for him this denomination of Black Edward, a name fearfully suitable to him who bore it. "Yes," he answered tauntingly, "it is I, Emin Douve, who awaits the coming of his fair cousin. You have said death is in your path. Come on and meet it, boy." Nothing daunted, however shocked at discovering the midnight waylayer of his path and his own relative, Cormac answered, "Emin Douve, I have never wronged you, but since you thirst for my blood and cross my path, on your own head be the penalty. Stand by me, Diarmid," said our brave youth, and rushing on his Herculean enemy, they closed in mortal combat. Now it be truly told, had the numbers been equal, the colossal strength of Emin might have found its overmatch in the activity of Cormac, and his skill in the use of his weapon. But the foul, the treacherous Emin! He dared his high-spirited rival to advance, but to entrap him into an ambuscade. For as he rushed upon his foe, past the beetling rock that hung over his path, a third assassin, unseen by the gallant Cormac, lay in wait, and when the noble youth was engaged in the fierce encounter, a blow dealt him in the back laid the betrothed of Eva, lifeless, at the feet of the savage and exulting Emin. Oh, how restlessly had Eva passed that turbulent night! Each gust of the tempest, each flash of living flame and burst of thunder awakened her terrors, lest Cormac, the beloved of her soul, were exposed to its fury. But in the lapse of the storm, hope ventured to whisper that he yet lingered in the castle of some friend beyond the mountains. The morning dawned, and silently bore witness to the commotion of the elements of the past night. The riven branch of the naked tree that in one night had been shorn of its leafy beauty, the earth strewn with foliage half green, half yellow, ere yet the autumnal alchemy had converted its summer verdure quite to gold. All gave evidence that an unusually early storm had been a forerunner of the equinox. The general aspect of nature, too, though calm, was cold. The mountain wore a dress of sombre grey, and the small scattered clouds were straggling over the face of heaven as though they had been rudely riven asunder, and the short and quick lash of the waters upon the shore of Lough Mask might have told to an unaccustomed eye that a longer wave and a wider foam had broken on its strand a few hours before. Ah, but what is that upthrown upon the beach? And who are those who surround it in such consternation? It is the little skiff that was moored at the opposite end of the lake on the preceding eve, the skiff that was to have borne Cormac to his betrothed bride. And they who identify the shattered boat are those to whom Eva's happiness is dearest, for it is her father and his attendants who are drawing ill omens from that tiny wreck. But they conceal the fact, and the expecting girl is not told of the evil-boding discovery. But days have come and gone, and Cormac yet tarries. At length 'tis past a doubt, and the father of Eva knows his child is widowed ere her bridal night, widowed in her heart at least. And who shall tell the fatal tale to Eva? Who shall cast the shadow o'er her soul and make the future darkness? Alas, ye feeling souls that ask it, That pause ere you can speak the word for that blights forever, pause no longer, for Eva already knows it. Yes, from tongue to tongue, my word on word from many a quivering lip and meanings darkly given. The dreadful certainty at last arrived to the bewildered Eva. It was nature's last effort at comprehension. Her mind was filled with one fatal knowledge. Cormac, her beloved Cormac, was gone. Gone forever. And that was the only mental consciousness that ever after employed the lovely Eva. The remainder of our melancholy tale is briefly told. Though quite bereft of all reason, Eva was now harmless as a child, and was allowed to wander round the borders of Lough Mask and its immediate neighbourhood. A favourite haunt of the still beautiful but sadly deranged Eva was the cave of Cong, where a subterranean river rushes from beneath a low natural arch in the rock, and passing for some yards over a strand of pebbles in pellucid swiftness, loses itself in the dark recesses of the cavern with the sound of a rapid and turbulent fall. This river is formed by the waters of Lough Mask, becoming engulfed at one of its extremities and hurrying through a subterranean channel until they rise again in the neighbourhood of Cong, and become tributary to River Corrib. And it is here that the poor girl would sit for hours, and believing that her beloved Cormac had been drowned in Lough Mask, she hoped, in one of those half-intelligent dreams which haunt a distempered brain, she hoped to arrest his body as she fancied it must pass through the cave of Cong, born on the subterranean river. Month after month passed by, but the nipping winter and the gentle spring found the lovely Eva still, watching by the stream, like some tutelary water nymph beside her sacred fountain. At length she disappeared, and though the strictest search was made, the broken-hearted Eva was never heard of more. And the tradition of the country is that the fairies took pity on a love so devoted, and carried away the faithful girl to join her betrothed in fairyland. What, you're hoping for a happier ending? Well, it is an Irish story, after all. And so, that was A Legend of Lough Mask. I hope you've enjoyed this special live presentation by Storylink Radio. And remember to hit the subscribe button and stop by our website at www.storylinkradio.com. Thank you, everyone.